Welcome to the Dale Lolley Show here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. And I am your host, Dale Lolley. And, the Steelers put in a practice on Wednesday, and this was treated like a regular Wednesday in season. The Steelers doing some game planning for the Detroit Lions this week. And, after practice, I had a chance to catch up with Steelers linebacker Devin Bush. And, I mentioned last week when I did the show after Bush spoke to the media at St. Vincent College that, I think he's a guy that sometimes gets a little anxious or even nervous when he is surrounded by a group of reporters. And so I had an opportunity to talk to him one-on-one today. I approached him and asked, hey, Devin, I want to talk to you. He said, what about? I said, you? And he yelled over to Miles Jack. He said, hey, Miles, he wants to talk to me about me. And then I said, he said, what do you want to know? I said, do you get nervous in those kind of situations? Where you're surrounded by reporters, it feels like the walls are closing in. And then he yells over to Miles Jack. Now, Miles Jack's locker is only 3 or 4 away from his. He said, hey, Miles, he wants to know if I get nervous in public when I'm speaking. And I said, that's not really what I meant. What I meant was in those kind of situations. I said, it seemed like some of what you said in the interview that you did last week was it seemed like some of it was kind of off the cuff or maybe not exactly what you meant to say. And that's when things just started to roll there between myself and Devin Bush, and he really opened up and was pretty good. I wish I could play back some of the audio for you. Some of it you can't really hear because there was a lot of noise around him, and some guys were playing music. It's that time of year if you can get away with playing music during this time of year. And we'll see if that continues. That was something that the Steelers have always kind of frowned upon. I know it carried over from the Joe Green in the 70s to Ben Roethlisberger carrying that on. Well, Roethlisberger's gone now. So we'll see if music in the locker room is a thing moving forward. They've had it at times during the offseason. It's a little more laid back. But, some of the stuff that he told me, Devin Bush, look, I said, do you want to be here beyond this season? He said, 100%. I'd love to be here. But I can't say that I love to be here so much that it would wreck my world if next year they said, nah, you got to go. I'm not going to set myself up for disappointment. I'm going to keep my mind open. I'm going to go as hard as I can here and make plays and be a player here and see where it goes after the season. What if they sign me during the season? What if they sign me after the season? You never know. What if they trade me? So he's trying to keep an open mind on this stuff, but he wants to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. He's worked very hard to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, and it worked his way back. That was another thing that he told me. He said, look, he said, put it this way, out of everybody that tore their ACLs in 2020, who was the only one that played the next season? Me. Odell Beckham, Saquon Barkley, Tariq Cohen, Nick Bosa. Bosa played. You look at Chase Young from Washington. They already ruled him out for the first few games of this season. I came back the first game and played 85% of the snaps and had 10 tackles. And he's right. He did have 10 tackles in that game against the Bills last season in his first game back. What happened after that? Well, that was a different story. It wasn't a good year. And he's admitted that several times, over the course of this offseason, when he's spoken to the media, that he didn't play well last year. He knows that. But I think he has his mindset on putting a better tape out there, playing better, and B, showing that he's recovered from that knee injury. Now, you can argue whether he's played better or not, but I'll tell you this, he's been in the right spot. He's been there where he's supposed to be at in the defense, and that's, I guarantee you, when coaches are looking at that, would they love for him to make some splash plays? Absolutely. He'd love to make some splash plays. He told me that as well. He'd like to be making some splash plays here. But right now it's about knowing his assignment and being in the right place and doing the job that he's supposed to be doing. He said, look, I think we're all learning as a group. We've got Terrell Austin now, new defensive coordinator, new coaches. We've got to try to get them all together. Individually, I think I did a solid job from an assignment standpoint. Would I have liked to have made more plays? Yeah. But assignment wise, I think I did a really good job. And I said, well, you made some of those plays early in your career. He said, I was playing in my second year and I was not making the splash like that, but I was playing solid. I wasn't making the splash. I made my first sack against the Cleveland Browns and got hurt in that same game. So it was there, but stuff happened. So I'm not ready to throw Devin Bush out as so many fans are ready to do. That one interview, I think people looked at it, read his body language. This was a completely different guy today in this interview than that one on that day. Now, he had just gotten finished with practice, so maybe there was a little bit of feeling of elation there. But I really thought that he opened up with me in this interview on Wednesday. And finally, with that, he said about that interview, I know people said that, made it sound like he didn't want to be with the Steelers. He said, let's just be honest about it. Whatever happens with me, I'm going to be in the league. That was my point. Say I don't come back to the Steelers. If somebody picks me up on the vet minimum, I'll still be in the NFL. I mean, I'm 24 years old. There are other first-round draft picks, and they get a chance. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to say nobody is going to pick me up. Somebody would at least say, come to our camp. At least I'm going to get a shot. That's what I meant when I said I'm going to be in the NFL. I'm not saying, oh, I'll be in the NFL no matter what. That's not what I'm saying. So I think there was some people who misunderstood what Devin Bush was trying to say. And that's why I went back. I wanted to give him a chance, to clarify some of those statements that he made, because there was some stuff in there that, hey, understandably, I can get why people would look at that video of him looking down at the ground, looking downtrodden, looking like he, didn't want to be there. He probably didn't want to be there. I think he's a guy that's just not real comfortable when he's surrounded by 40 reporters and they're all tossing questions at him. I don't blame him for that. I talk all the time on the radio, on TV, whatever. I don't know that I would be real comfortable surrounded by people yelling questions at me. I just don't know if I would. I've never done it. I've never been in that situation, but I can understand where that would be a little bit intimidating. And so I think a lot of times, and he's not the only guy that this happens with. I think a lot of times players kind of shut down a little bit. And, some of the things that they say look a little bit worse than what they are. Or in some cases, they look a lot worse than what they are. So we'll see. The proof is in the pudding. He's going to have to put it on the field. He's going to have to show up and make plays. If he does that, I think some fans will overlook some things that have happened with him in the past. If he doesn't, well, they'll never forgive him. That's just the reality of the situation. But I wanted to give him a chance to tell his side of the story. That's what reporters do. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the surprise visitor that was at the Steelers practice on Wednesday. We'll do that when we come back. You're listening to the Dale Lolley Show here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. So I went out to watch practice with the Steelers on Wednesday. This is the Dale Lolley Show here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. And as I looked across the sidelines, because we walked over to the far side of the field, the Steelers were on their second field practicing on Wednesday. I looked over and I saw, who's that big guy standing next to Mike Tomlin? Oh, that's Ben Roethlisberger. Oh, isn't that interesting? And so Roethlisberger's there, the Steelers having a Wednesday practice, which was kind of their walkthrough install for their next preseason game, which is Sunday against the Detroit Lions. And I look over and there's Ben standing there talking to Mike Tomlin. And I watch him and he's stood there and talked to Tomlin for a good 20 minutes. And, the Steelers were going through a special teams portion of practice at that point. And then he walked away and went over, talked to Minka Fitzpatrick, talked to Cam Hayward, played a little catch with Deontay Johnson. Just having some fun chatting with some of the guys that he knows on this roster. And I couldn't help but think, this is about what Ben Roethlisberger did on a regular Wednesday during the season because, well, Wednesdays were an install day for the Steelers, for a long, long time now, ever since I've been covering the team, that Wednesday's install day. And for about the last 5 or 6 years, well, Roethlisberger really didn't practice a whole lot on Wednesdays because they're trying to rest his elbow and get some of the younger quarterbacks that they had on their roster some snaps and some first team reps and things of that nature. But it was interesting to see Roethlisberger out there. I know there's been some people who have speculated that, well, maybe, Ben wasn't happy about how things ended for him. And that may be true. I don't think any player, unless they go out as a champion, like Jerome Bettis did, or even a John Elway, I don't think they're ever happy if they don't go out as a winner after winning a championship. I mean, that's the ideal way to walk away from the game on your own terms, doing it your own way. So I don't know that Ben Roethlisberger is ever going to be happy about the way his career ended with a playoff loss in Kansas City, a game in which the Steelers really weren't in after the midway through the second quarter. He's never going to be happy about that. He's too much of a competitor. But for the speculation that somehow the Ben Roethlisberger is unhappy with the team or unhappy with how things went down, I don't know that he comes back this quickly and just stops by to visit like this, if that were the case. I just don't think that would happen. And so, Mike Tomlin said, after practice that he's been in contact with Ben on a regular basis throughout the process here. And of course, Ben Roethlisberger had dinner with Mitch Trubisky soon after he signed with the Steelers and has talked to Trubisky, and they've traded numbers, and I'm sure they've continued to trade some texts and things of that nature. So this is not a situation, I don't think, where Ben Roethlisberger is unhappy with the team or anything of the sort. I just think he wants to spend time away. He wants to spend time with his children, with his family, with his wife and kids, and do some dad things. It must have been such a relief for him when August rolled around this year, late July rolled around, and he didn't have to report to training camp at St. Vincent College. He didn't have to show up and keep his go out there and be away from his family every day. He could spend that time being a dad, being a husband, doing those kind of things. And you could just ride in and watch practice and see everybody going through all their stuff. And then you can just drive away, go back to your house. Sure, you miss the games, but you can still go out and hang out with the guys. And that's kind of what he was doing on this Wednesday afternoon. That's going to do it for the Dale Lolley Show today. We appreciate you listening to all of our shows here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Of course, the Steelers again play their final preseason game on Sunday against the Detroit Lions. Mitch Trubisky saying today he expects to start that game, and by all appearances, that looks to be the case. So we'll see how that goes down for the Steelers. In the meantime, I'll be back to talk to you again tomorrow. We'll see you then.